2015. Let's just wait a few minutes before we get started. Wait for everyone to get on the call. But if this is where you want to be, you're here. Too bad we don't have any music in the background. I guess I could sing, but that would probably scare people away. We'll get started here in another minute or so. We should have a great turnout today based on the registration and the topic around OMI and the presenters. So, should be a good call. You're on the APM Practitioner Forum call. We'll be getting started shortly. We should be going through commercials from our sponsors. Brought to you by...
Another revenue opportunity.
You know, always thinking. Again, you're on the APM Practitioner Forum call for September. We'll be getting started shortly. Yeah, we gave everybody a break over the summer, so we didn't have many calls. So it looks like we had enough pent-up demand. People wanted to be on these calls to learn about what's happening with HP. And hopefully we have some great questions. We got a great group of folks that can answer your questions. So anything related to the OMI component in that space, start thinking of questions you want to ask for our Q&A section, and we'll get started there. So let's see, what time do we have? Well, I think we should get started. I have 11:08 Eastern Standard Time, and we've got a lot to cover, so we'll get started. And so, again, welcome to the APM Practitioner Forum call for September. My name is Rocky Pisto. I'm part of the BSM SIG leader team of Jim Copio, Mark Laird, Sandy Schubert, and we are all SIG leaders for the BSM SIG, which comprises of about 6,000 members worldwide. So thank you for being on the call today. If you have any questions beyond this call or would like to hear about topics relevant to your situation, send us a note, and we'll try to make that happen on the next call. This is a live session, and it's being recorded. Recordings are available to all Vivid members. It'll show up in the BSM SIG landing page as a recorded session, and all our sessions are recorded there. So this is kind of an open call session once we get past our presenters today. And so there's a place where you can leave your questions in the question panel. And here's an example of that. So there's a toggle view for the window between full screen and window mode. And you can type in your questions, and my SIG leader, Mark Laird, will take those questions and ask them of HP. So just a little intro. If you've not been on one of these calls before, we've taken over the APM practitioner call from HP back in January, December timeframe. Vivid is your independent HP software group, which is a great place for this. We used to be the OpenView Forum. So for all you OpenView customers, we've been around for 20-some years now, 22 years. And we've grown to 30,000 members worldwide with 81 local chapters around the world. And our speakers today are HP's Ian Brohead, who will kind of moderate their team of speakers, and we'll go from there. So let's see, the agenda, what's new with OMI version 10, and the evolution program. Anyone that needs a copy of that, please send me a note. I have it for you. I can send you the whole program, and we'll let them take it from there. So, Ian, it's all yours.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Rocky. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone, and thanks for your time today in joining this webinar. We're going to talk a little bit about what is the current offering from HP, which we call Operations Bridge, actually, for which the core product is, of course, IMI. And I think it's worth just kicking off, making sure everyone's got a common understanding of what we mean by Operations Bridge and some of the features which are in today's product version of IMI and how we think that helps customers to solve issues. So just a few slides here to make sure that we're all on a level playing field. What's new with Ops Bridge? The Operations Bridge, hopefully most people would understand what we mean by Ops Bridge, or Operations Bridge to be exact. It isn't a HP term, actually. It's a term that comes from ITSM, and it actually means a physical location where all information and resources come together for the purpose of solving issues with IT operations. We've used that term to define the solution which IMI is pivotal in delivering to customers. Ian Brownhead, that's me. I'm in product marketing. My focus is the Operations Bridge. And I'm joined today by two of my esteemed colleagues. Ladies first, Carol Park, who's a subject matter expert, in particular on IMI, but on the Ops Bridge solution too. And Volker Gartner, who's part of the R&D team, who is also a specialist and leads our team of ambassadors across the world concerning the implementation of Ops Bridge solutions and IMI. So welcome to my colleagues. Hopefully we should have one of our customers, Jay Rooney from Van City, who has implemented IMI version 10. I'm not seeing the name list here, so I'm not sure if he's joined us yet. So when we come to his section, if he hasn't joined, then we'll skip on to the interactive discussion. Okay, so let's have a look at what's new with Ops Bridge and go to the next slide, please. Okay, so some of these slides are taken from the standard presentation. That's one slide too far. Thank you. And basically what we're showing here, let me get to the correct slide. Okay, thank you. Is that in actual fact, when we look at the state of many IT operations teams, and if we also look at some of the evidence of that state that subject matter experts, people like analysts and what have you are communicating, then it's pretty clear that IT is going through a lot of pressures to transform. And what we show in this slide really is that in many instances we still see a lot of IT teams operating as a cost function. And as businesses want to be more agile, bringing out more and more agile applications to suit their business needs, then IT really does need to reposition itself and transform itself to be a better strategic partner. And some of the things that are shown a little bit in this slide are that if you're a cost function, that probably means that you're spending a lot of time in war rooms. You're probably not using extensively automation to reduce human effort, and that you had a difficulty communicating IT's value and showing IT's value to a business partner. The kind of ideal situation as a strategic partner would be that automation is extensively used for IT operations, remedial actions, but also we are able to add to the current landscape of IT management tools, such things as analytics, to be able to help to analyze the situation so much more faster than human capabilities would ever be able to do, given the kind of big data problem that we have today, where there's so many different resources in the IT landscape that are generating information. Big data now gives us the opportunity to go and use that data to try and find where issues lie, where trends are showing us that things are happening, and even become proactive and predictive. So some of the ideas that we believe help people to move from left to right on this kind of screen are aspects of an analytics-driven operations solution, where analytics is applied to as many things as we can, and we use the power of big data to help us do that. But not just that, it's also the aspects of being able to discover what is the IT landscape and make sure we've got an accurate picture of what is influencing what, right? So which humblest network port is capable of influencing the most business critical applications. We need to have that discovery, and we need it to be up to date as much as we can. We need to be able to monitor, and we need to make sure that monitoring is activated in as much as possible whenever change occurs. And of course, change is one of those constants. Everything's changing, whether it be configurations of what's out there already, or whether it's new instances of things, be they IT landscape resources in your own environment, or be they services which you're subscribing to through a private or a hybrid cloud. But monitoring needs to be automated as much as we can as well. From a compliance perspective, this is a growing requirement too, to make sure that we know what we are monitoring and to make sure we know how we're monitoring. And then, of course, remediation. IT resources are not always available to be able to take corrective action. So whenever and wherever it's feasible to be able to define automated remedial actions, we should be trying to do that because it will reduce the aspects of power outages and of downtime. So let's have a look. Go to the next slide, please, and have a look at normally what are some of the benefits that people are deriving by applying these aspects. And we're showing some of them here. I think there's one missing on the left. Maybe it's an animation. There we go. So when you can discover and you can have an accurate picture, when you can automate monitoring, and when you can use remediation with improved aspects of analytics that we'll talk about, then people are today able to reduce the number of events which they're having to deal with events coming from what's being monitored by as much as 75 to 80%. We have several customers who have been able to do that by implementing IMI in the Oxbridge. People are taking cost out of their operations as much as 1.2 million. We have several customers who are measuring really enormous reduction of operations costs by using automation, by making sure they're focused on the right issues, and by being able to look at the issues which are impacting the business and focus on them. And then when you use analytics to be able to do this kind of operation, we're also seeing that people can do triage, find the root cause, just so much faster than was feasible previously. That's the power of applying analytics to the operations. So how do we do some of those things? Let's go to the next slide. So we believe that by applying such things as big data-driven analytics, multimode correlation, automated log and event and metrics analysis, even predictive analysis, and having the means to have very clear visibility through KPI over time is one example we'll see later on, but also if we can use a time machine window to say, okay, so we know where we are now, we've got a situation, but let's wind back over time to see how do we get to that situation. Previously, that was an exercise which would have been executed many times in war rooms. Now, by creating an analytics-driven solution, we can offer that in a real-time perspective with very powerful visual output. Fast and accurate continuous discovery, I mentioned already. Monitoring with business-focused triage, so that when we do find root cause, we can accurately make sure that we look at what's impacting the business. And that's a strong value proposition of OMI. But also being able to do that across the millions of objects. Scalability is something we've worked hard on. Scalability from the perspective of the number of things that you have to manage that are important to be able to build a picture end-to-end and top-to-bottom of what's happening, and across a vastly expanding landscape of application types, middleware types, and we're supporting more and more of those. Obviously, to a large extent, making sure that customers who've invested already in existing tools, we're not suggesting that it's necessary need to throw those away at all. The data they bring to bear, often as best-of-breed tools, is a partial picture of what's happening end-to-end and top to bottom. So we integrate that into our solution called Operations Bridge. And then remediation, right? So we propose that people need to be able to do remediation, which might be a simple script, but it also might be a complicated and involved conditional flow of a runbook. And I'm happy to say that in our solution, then we can offer several thousand runbooks out of a library, which is extremely valuable. So let's move on to the next slide. Here you can see just a couple of things, hopefully in this slide deck on the left-hand side. The one I'm showing at the top is the KPI over time. That's a new capability that's in OMI 10 as part of the Oxbridge solution. It's very nice because, in fact, what it does is allow you to see in a grid format which parts of a business service or an IT service or simply an application, which parts are exhibiting issues over time and probably need operator and specialist attention. We're also seeing some aspects of overall health of the service itself being aggregated and shown in bar chart format and a graphical format as well. And this can be conditioned, of course, according to the responsibilities of the person who's looking at it. So it's a very good way where, for the first time, OMI is giving us a scope of trend analysis, if you wish, for our big business and IT services. The one you see at the bottom is actually in the Operations Bridge solution. We couple Operations Bridge OMI with Operations Analytics, where we see, in fact, that we can exchange data and context between our operator consoles and our operator analytics consoles. For the purpose of doing what? Well, for the purpose of saying that you can't monitor everything. That can be expensive for people. And in any case, there are so many different device types and the technologies that they invoke that it becomes extremely hard these days to monitor everything. So one of the things that you can do, of course, is to collect log information as well as events and metrics and then mine that. And that's precisely what we do with our big data analytics solution. Coupled with OMI, this means that we have the capability of, as I said, winding backwards and forwards, but also automating. How do we find pertinent information in millions of log files in literally seconds and then point to the most pertinent few log files which are likely to be helping us to understand what's happening in the IT landscape. And as I mentioned, we're supporting from OMI more and more different types of domains, whether those be cloud domains such as EC2, Microsoft Azure, or whether they be those application domains that developers will be choosing all the time. There's more and more of them. We can think of Python, we can think of MongoDB, we can think of Docker as being very important application domains for modern IT architectures. They all need to be supported if we're going to be able to see what is impacting the business and focus on the right things. So let's have a look at the next slide. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so one of the things that probably most of you will understand, looks like it's an animated slide if you just build the next sets of animation. Thank you. This is just pointing to the capabilities that we have of providing the analytics-driven paradigm to IT operations. At the top right, you can see this is what we were talking about in terms of multi-mode correlation techniques, which allow us to take multiple events and then see which ones of those are actually symptoms and which one is really the root cause. And if we find that there's more than one root cause, then of course we need to look at which one of those root causes is having the most business impacted. Then the other parts of analytics are the aspects of, as I mentioned, its automated capability to constantly look at log entries, millions of them, and then find elements of log entries which interest us, which are linked to some of the IT events which are happening right now, but for which we don't have a lot of information and we can't easily find the root cause. Analyzing the logs is something that people would have been doing over the years, opening a telnet session or using something of that nature to go and have a look on a target machine. It's a very lengthy exercise. Automation brings us the means to be able to do that for log entries, but also now for events as well, automating the analysis to show us which is the most pertinent set of activities which are occurring around the time when we know we've got issues. And predictive. Our analytics capabilities are capable of learning the seasonal behavior of metrics, metrics which are either measured by our OMI monitoring systems or metrics taken out of a log text entry, which we can do now as well. And so the predictive aspects are obviously very interesting in the sense that we can try and give operators an upfront indication of something which doesn't look quite normal, an anomaly per se, and feed that event into OMI so we can drill down and eventually take action. Let's move on to the next slide. What I'm describing to you here is the real-time event correlation. You're looking at the latest dashboards of an operator's console in OMI 10 on the left, and we can isolate the signal in the noise by integrating this animated slide as well. So if you could just complete the animation on the screen, then we'll see that we can use information from OMI fed to our analytics engine and then interchange information between those two capabilities so that we can drill down and find things faster. Can you complete the animation on the slide, please? So there you see, in fact, something which our own IT is using internally. Our own IT is using OMI to manage upwards of 70,000 servers across HP, which is quite an extensive installation, and uses the real-time event correlation to be able to isolate particular signals. But in those rare occasions when there are issues, they don't have enough information to understand how they got to where they are, then the transfer of context between OMI and the analytics context on the right-hand side helps us then to be able to understand what log entries and event entries correlate and find issues faster. So this is the new operations bridge definition where we couple the capabilities of OMI with operations analytics. Okay, let's move on. This is just a confirmation of what I was saying earlier, that the event information from OMI can be loaded into the analytics engine as well as logs, and of course the automation that's in the big data analytics helps us to identify the few messages out of the millions of messages which are likely to be giving us pertinent visibility of what's happening. Let's move on. This is just a couple of screenshots showing you the automated baseline generation, the seasonal learning of our analytics engine, which can then raise alerts into OMI and then help us to execute remedial action. Let's move on to the next slide, which is talking about remediation. So our operations bridge solution is coupling OO, operations orchestration, with those 5,000 runbooks directly with OMI. So when we have particular cases which are identified in OMI, we can either set up a situation where the remediation is executed automatically, and that could be things concerning linkages to the service desk to open particular tickets, execute remedial action, and if it succeeds, close the ticket. That's a particular solution that we call the closed loop incident process or detect to correct. But also, of course, helping an operator to execute remedial actions that have been proven before based on his own judgment of what OMI is showing to him. So let's move on to the next slide. This is showing you something new, which was introduced in HP Discover Las Vegas, which we're very excited about. It's still in beta for the moment as a SaaS solution. We hope to be able to release this as an on-premise solution at HP Discover in London. It's called the Business Value Dashboard, and it was born from the requirement to help IT operations show more clearly on an ongoing basis how it's impacting the business. It's a simple way of putting IT metrics, IT status, and business metrics into a real-time dashboard. A dashboard is designed using Microsoft Visio So anyone can do the kind of dashboard that you see here on the next couple of slides very quickly and very easily. They can be modified practically on the fly. And then, of course, the information concerning IT metrics, IT status, is piped to the business value dashboard, which is simply a presentation layer. It's very colorful, it's very flexible, you can do what you want. This particular example here is showing your bank branch, so you can see that there is some information which is non-IT concerning temperature, concerning the number of people who are entering and exiting the bank branch, as well as important information probably for the line of business manager here on the IT status of the most important aspects of his business. Let's move on to the next slide. So this is a presentation layer. As an on-premise solution, it's offered with the current with the version of OMI that we'll be releasing in HP Discover. That's the next version of OMI, which will be required to support this. So the business value dashboard, you can see here, is capable of showing a geographical distribution of IT metrics, of IT status, of business metrics. And that's really the power of it. It's a loosely coupled way of presenting to board teams, to IT executives, to combinations thereof. And the people who've been using this so far, excuse me, have already developed dashboards which have been very helpful to them to show both their IT executives and their business executives what's happening and how things might not be due to any issues inside IT or vice versa that are due to issues in IT, and make strategic decisions on what needs to be done to be able to govern user satisfaction or business revenues. So if you're interested in this, it is something which is new. You can subscribe to it. Let's go to the next slide. You can subscribe to it today at hp.com/go/bvd. And when you go there and you register for that SaaS beta, then you would be able to create your own dashboards using the examples that we provide and then pipe information to those dashboards. Let's go to the next slide, please. This one's just showing you an example and some of the highlights of what you can put in here. Look at the bottom left-hand side where we're showing in actual fact we can also pipe non-business and non-IT information that we take from the internet, such as a streaming video stream of a news release or even video cameras of the premises that someone's surveying using the Business Value dashboard. Okay, so let's move on. I think the next section is about the automated IT reporting. So this is probably something that you know. It's a tandem solution to OMI, which is SHR, Service Health Reporting, and gives us a capability of designing reports which bring together OMI events, OMI metrics, and metrics from other sources too, into a cross-domain IT report, which can be generated automatically and distributed automatically to the appropriate people. Okay, so I think you're hopefully up to date now on most of the aspects of what's new with OMI and the Upspread solution. If you want to move on to the next slide, please. Then here's some of the benefits that people are measuring today. I mentioned this earlier on: 75% typical event volume reduction, 72 times faster triage is a use case that our own IT was able to identify, and I think you would agree that's an enormous improvement in mean time to repair. Customers who are improving their SLAs by as much as 90%, that's really important business contribution. The higher the SLA, of course, the more often business users can exploit the IT resources that are assigned to the services. And then savings, I mentioned 1.2 million earlier on, which is one customer. Here's another customer who's measuring for himself the kind of savings he's getting through the use of OMI in his environment. Okay, let's move on to the evolution program, which I'm hoping most people are aware of. Next slide, please. So the evolution program is built for the operations manager install base. And here's some of the aspects that we believe we're trying to address with the evolution program. Let's move on to the next slide so that we show people what kind of aspects are built into this program. If you're a user of Operations Manager or Performance Insight or HP Reporter, then you have entitlement to use the Operations Bridge Premium. The Operations Bridge Premium is just a particular version of everything I've shown you so far. So it's service-driven with the single pane of glass and most of the things I've shown you. And the Bridge Ultimate, of course, is the one where we provide the analytics-driven aspects of predictive analytics and automated log and event analytics. So the evolution program is essentially allowing people to move from OM to OpsBridge. The entitlement is indefinite, so people can install the OpsBridge licenses to their data center and then work at their pace to move progressively from the Operations Manager implementation to the new Operations Bridge-based implementation. And then later on, if they wish, upgrade to get the extra aspects of the analytics-driven full solution. So that's the evolution program. Let's move on to the next slide. Which is just pointing out some of the aspects that we believe are valuable to customers. As I mentioned, there's license entitlement, and that's indefinite. The processes which you probably developed based around what you were doing before with OM and with Performance Insight and Reporter are going to be implementable using OMI. The collectors, whether they are agent-based or agentless, are usable with OMI as well. So this is a non-disruptive entitlement, non-disruptive solution in most cases, with just a few exceptions. We provide step-to-step guides, evolution tools. As I mentioned, you can do it at your own pace. And here's some of the comments back from some of our customers who've done it already. G Moneybank was the first, I think, in the world to actually switch off OM. They completed their migration, and they're really delighted with the improved value that they're now getting from OpsBridge. KMD also progressed extremely well, very happy with the new dashboards which they are able to use, and find that OMI version 10 is a really great way to improve operator capabilities of solving issues. Okay, let's move on to the next section, which here's just some indications of value and some of the other customers who adopted the OpsBridge solution. Okay, so the next section I think is Jay's testimonial. So I'm not sure if Jay is on the line. I don't see his name in the list of panelists here. Let's move on to the next section away from here. Next slide, please. These are showing you some of the solutions which people are using today with Operations Bridge. I mentioned detect to correct or closed loop incident process. Here's another one where people are able to automate the way in which monitoring using OMI is set up for cloud services inside EC2, Azure. I think I mentioned earlier on. Let's move on, please, to the next section. Okay, it doesn't look like you've got Jay's slides in here, Rocky.
No, I don't, Ian.
Okay, is Jay on the line?
I haven't seen him.
No, I've tried to reach him, but he's. I don't get a reply. I'm sorry.
Okay, I do have Jay's slides, so if it's valuable, I can walk people through them.
I can, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. We can make you the presenter.
Okay,
and we
go
can show
ahead.
your slides, and that way you can.
Right. Right.
Okay, I'll make you presenter.
Thank you. Okay, so hopefully you can see.
Great. Yeah, I can see you.
So Jay's a great advocate of OMI 10. He's a member of the core infrastructure team at Band City, which is Canada's largest credit union. He describes himself as a geek, so he often gets involved both in the production operations systems at Band City, but also as a technologist. Band City, as I mentioned, is quite a large credit union in Canada, the biggest in fact. and has, as you can see here, a landscape ranging from 467 moving to 1,000 servers plus as their business grows. They were users of Operations Manager. They've moved to the full Operations Bridge implementation, and he's now using OMI version 10 in production. He's a true bridge user. The notion of the Operations Bridge is vital to Jay, and if he was here to explain to you live himself how he is sitting on top of best of breed tools that he uses for his environments, such as Cisco, such as Microsoft SCOM for the Microsoft environment, and he brings events, metrics, and topology out of those tools into the Operations Bridge. Here's his operations landscape. They're using virtualization heavily. They're not using cloud too much at the moment, but they are using virtualized environments. So it's very important for him to have the bridge where he can bring information out of those hypervisors. His core banking apps are mostly home developed and home tailored. And you can see some of the tools that he's now using in the Operations Bridge configuration. So it's got a lot of HP tools providing the data sources into the Operations Bridge, such as NMI, as well as security tools, ArcSight and SiteScope. But he's also bringing the information, as I mentioned, from the third-party tools as well to the central console. And he's using a detect to correct type setup where he's got OMI integrated with his help desk using Service Manager. Their evolution to OMI 10 has been a lot faster than he expected. He loves the navigation, which is a lot more streamlined inside of OMI version 10. I didn't mention that earlier on, but the product has been redesigned and re-engineered with OMI version 10.xx, and Jay's pointing out here that he finds navigation to solve issues so much faster than it was previously for his operators. The dashboards are cleaner, they're easy to build and tailor. He likes the split that we've executed where OMI 10 doesn't need the BSM platform. Of course, it does obviously work with the BSM platform, but it gives him that extra flexibility to set up new operations systems much faster than was previously possible with OMI embedded inside of BSM. He uses UCMDB. He likes the Postgres SQL support, which we have introduced with OMI version 10 as well, so they don't need necessarily to use legacy databases, which translate to expensive licenses and not always necessary for some of his installations, like new setups, which you can stand up in just a couple of hours. He's showing here some of the aspects of their service modeling. I can't replace him and to explain to you how this is being done, but you can see some of the aspects of how the modeling that he's doing inside OMI 10 using UCMDB is vital to his business. The aspects of being able to control properly business prioritization for his SLA, contract respect is vital, and the aspects of product integrations too. The benefits he points out are here. So the single pane of glass, as you may expect, of the bridge is absolutely vital, and this is echoed by so many other people, a growing number of people now who are telling us that they can't build the picture without having a single pane of glass of what's happening for prioritization, etc. Note that he also likes the monitoring automation capabilities that I mentioned earlier, the means to be able to ensure that everything is being managed, that nothing is slipping, is important to Jay. And they're expanding, they're integrating with aspects of vCops from VMware. The SAN integration, you can read it for yourself here, and beginning to use the automated remediation we talked about earlier. So I'm sorry that Jay wasn't able to give you that visibility himself today. So with no further ado, Rocky, I'll open up for discussion and questions.
Okay, hi Ian, it's Mark. I've got one question in the question box. I've got two questions now. I'll start with question number one. So it says, does the operations agent need to be upgraded from 11xx?
Okay, so Adam, Carol and Volga would like to take that question.
Yeah. I think if you're on a recent 11.x version, then you don't have to upgrade. OMI can work with an agent 11.x 1.12 or later, and you can configure such an agent with monitoring automation inside OMI.
Okay, thank you. Right, next question. Where do you need to be in the maturity scale in the use of an existing OMW or OM and the development of event correlation? Is operations analytics a prerequisite?
Do you want to, I can give a quick.
Okay.
So anyone else can jump in, of course, but the second part, operation analytics is not a prerequisite. You can start at any point in the process that makes sense for your environment. That's the easy part. As far as the maturity level is concerned, I think as Ian was pointing out at the end there, the key thing with OMI as part of the solution is it is a single pane of glass. And so even with OMI, if you don't have that any level of maturity whatsoever, that is a key thing for anybody. It's the most common, bring it all together, and then work towards going from reactive to proactive to predictive through that process. But you can do the switch, if you like, at any stage.
Ian, you're still sharing your desktop. Maybe you can switch that off.
Rocky, can I go back
Can
to
you
you
grab it
for
back?
the... Yeah.
So the next question, possibly for Ian, is Van City using VPV or just VCOps and vCenter integration?
If Ian's not answering, then I've worked with Van City. I've been with them when we worked through the OMI 10 deployment or initially, and they did not have VPV.
Okay, so they're just using straight vCenter integration, presumably.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing right now. It's been a few months since I have been there, so as of this week, I have no idea. But
Historically,
yes, historically they had, before they went to OMI 10, they had BSM 9 with using BPM and OMW. And on the BSM server, they also had OMI, so that they were already using that. And then they basically moved their policy management or their monitoring across. Oh, they stood up OMI 10. They moved all their OMI, all their OM monitoring and agents to OMI 10, and then they basically pointed their operators when they were happy with the GUI layouts. Pointed the operators or the users to the OMI 10 server and integrated their BSM 9 server to the OMI server, and of course any other integrations added into that.
okay, thank you very much.
Oh, and they've got SiteScope obviously as well. Actually right now they were integrating SiteScope into the BSM server or the APM server as we're calling it. But they're now switching that, looking to switch that across so that SiteScope is integrated directly to OMI 10 instead of the APM server.
So they're taking the what I would call the new architecture model, where BSM is almost a feed into the OMI solution.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, I lost my telephone connection, so I'm back on.
So there's one here that says, I'm evaluating OMI 10 now. I want to be able to show some value to a couple of important stakeholders. I'm aware of management packs, but in order to, say, add like 5 clients, desktops, laptops, how can I get a nice picture quickly?
let me try to tackle that one. I think it's right. You want to just manage 5 systems, 5 desktop systems, and want to see them in your OMI system and how they be. If that's the scenario you're after, well, typically with OMI, as with OM today, you would begin managing them by installing agents on these systems. Or, of course, if you want to use agent-less monitoring, you would use Sidescope. So that's what the 2 options that you have, right? By installing agents on the systems, then afterwards you can deploy the infrastructure management pack very quickly using monitoring automation, and that will already give you some CIs in your RTSM. You will see the systems, and you will get events from the systems talking about CPU load and disk load and so on. So I think that's the fastest way to get started, install the agent and deploy the management packs, which can be easily done. And actually we have some videos on the live network that tell you how you install an agent connected to OMI and how you deploy the infrastructure management pack. I hope that's addressing your question.
And I might,
yep. Carol, yeah.
I might add a little bit more, yeah, just in case. I mean, I just heard the term desktops, so I wondered if that meant running the GUI from the desktop as opposed to managing the desktop, if you know what I mean.
I don't know from the question. It's just a case of I think they're trying to get some sort of dashboard to be able to show to the stakeholders. So Eric says yes. That's
and so right. So right now, I mean, 2 parts of that question. And the first one is just mechanically, the client desktop needs to have some plugins, Java and Flash for IE or Firefox, or Safari on the Mac. And actually, and then when they they have a login and so on, and they get permissions to see whatever they're allowed to see. But on the back end, you want to create a dashboard that's going to have some wow factor, and how to do that quickly. So depending on your audience, I mean, I tend to start showing the fairly high level view first, so something that gives me an overall perspective of the health of the environment before drilling down into the detail, and that very quickly could be something like like Ian showed a screenshot, KPI over time, gives you that nice overall color, and you can do that for a business service, business application, or potentially individual servers if that's the level you want to look at. One that doesn't require any work at all is the ROI statistics page. You just go to that page and you see this is showing you the percentage of events that required no human intervention. So you can demonstrate that it's providing some value by automating and correlating the events going through. So it gives you the efficiencies and how you can improve on that over time. And perhaps measure that, look at that before you do too much correlation and automation, and then measure it again later and see how the 2 compare. And then the third one would be the monitoring dashboard. So within a workspace, and the workspaces are easy, and one of them is the monitoring dashboard, and it's easy to either modify an existing one or create a new one. And this just provides overall summarized health as well, so overall status based on an event filter or a view filter or a combination of the 2. So you can get, here's my overall data center health, or here's my overall database health, or geographic based, or whatever it might be. Oh, and that's another example too. Perhaps if it's important to you to show a geographic map, there's a little bit more work involved in that because you need to map the CIs to a location, but it depends if that's an important thing for your environment. They're just a few ideas to get started on components to use to create a single workspace.
Maybe if I can just add another suggestion that may be of value, and that is the business value dashboard, which, as I mentioned, is an integral part of IMI as we bring the next version out. at HP Digital in London. The business value dashboard would allow you to develop a template that might be a classroom bird's eye view, or it might be some other kind of geographical representation as well. So depending what the objective is here, is it to be able to show the points of sale or desktops used for university or something like that description. If you wanted to show status, then presumably the dependent data center resources which are supporting those desktops or tablets or whatever, those would be important IT statuses to be showing to make sure that people who are responsible for those resources can see whether the problem is with the desktop or whether it's with a central resource. So I think there's quite a few ways in which you can set up these kinds of dashboards, either native to OMI or taking information from OMI to the Business Value dashboard. There's quite a few ways that you could do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. So one from Suresh. Where can I find the architecture change between BSM 925 to the introduction of this OMI 10.1?
Okay, I think that's one for my specialists here.
I was going to say, I know I've seen it as part of partner slides and partner training.
Right.
I don't know how public that is at the moment, or how widespread that is.
So immediate thing that comes to mind is the FAQ that we've got on the softwaresupport.hp.com site. I can get the direct URL, and that's really, if you know BSM 9.2x, it's an FAQ that goes through, answers obviously the most common questions about the architectural changes, and that's got a reasonable amount of detail in it. So I can provide that. I'm not sure. Off the top of my head, I can't think of another resource, but unless anyone else can.
We did a 4-hour session with Rocky, with Vivek. We did a 4-hour session for architects. Rocky, do people have access to the content we used in that session?
If it was done on Vivek, it should have been recorded. It would be on the Vivek forum.
Well, it was a 4-hour interactive session, so
Okay.
I don't think it was being recorded. But
okay.
The content that Carol used to explain some of the differences and some of the aspects that she showed in that session, I was just wondering if that was captured and is published on the Vivek website at all.
We will have a look. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And what about Live Network? Well, Current Carol, is something on Live Network?
I think not regarding the architecture. I mean, there's a lot on Live Network, but we don't have a specific presentation about the architecture changes on there.
Yeah, it was really just from the partner side. It was just a simple 2 or 3 slides, I think, that just showed how BSM was moving from sort of the top of the tree to almost a data provider into the OMI. And then the split then between the BSM 925 and the OMI 10, I think, was the basically the way it was explained to us.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Ian, I can find that presentation and put it in the BSM SIG directory of presentations. So we'll try to make that available.
Okay, good. There's quite a few details I think you went through, Carol, right, in that session.
I've even forgotten whatever the session was. Sorry about that. It's all a blur.
And it was in Las Vegas.
Oh, that one. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, thank you. I was also thinking, just to add on to the comment, just as a highlight of the architecture change. You're right. That the so-called split, if you know what I mean. The future direction is for OMI to be its own software installation on its own platform. We still have OMI included in BSM for the time being, but all our sort of focused development, new things are really coming out on its own OMI 10 platform. But the other thing too is it's all about simplification. So OMI 10 doesn't have a metric channel in it. So if you want to have there's no profile database, etc., and all of that is, it's in your BSM server because that's very much metric driven historically anyway, from way back, the Topaz days and so on. And with BPM and RUM and diagnostics and SAM with SiteScope and so on. So that's probably the other big change, is the metric channel, as well as that separation, but with an integration between the two.
And I think again, as it was explained to us, it was, I think as you alluded to it, it's going to allow the two products to evolve at slightly, they're tied too tightly together at the moment, which is hindering the evolution. So I think that was again, it was one of the ways it was explained to us, is that by separating them out, that will allow the two products to actually evolve at a different pace.
Yeah, that's right. In previous.
Right, they can each focus on this.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay. There's another one here from Suresh. What component level changes would need to be made as part of an implementation? Not sure I understand the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question either.
Okay, so maybe Suresh is still around, so maybe he'll maybe can update the question. Right, one from Greg here. What kind of an interesting one? What kind of horsepower do you need to have in the background to ensure good end user experience to run the interfaces?
I'd say the best.
Lots.
Of course, it depends. Question. It depends of how much data you're dealing with, how many users you will have connected to these interfaces, how large is the environment that you want to manage, and then depending on the size of your environment, you have to bring in more horsepower than for a smaller one. Right? We can scale. There are scaling options with additional gateway servers that can then support more users. Of course, a higher CPU and memory will also be required the larger the environment is. Details are in our deployment guides. I think that's all I can say right now here on that level.
I don't know if Greg has access to the partner portal, but we have published the performance and the sizing guide for OMI 10 on the partner portal, so you should be able to get some details from there.
Okay, thank you. Right, new taking it in a slightly different direction. This won't be one for you, Ian. When migrating from OMU to OMI, where will I find the server-side message regrouping?
You're right.
Okay, so there are a couple of places you can do that. and so, I mean, one of them would be, and it's event filter based. I should just start with that. So it's quite a simple way to define an event filter that says events that match these attributes. Then they come into that, go into being processed by that area of OMI. So there are different areas then within OMI. One of them would be through, for example, stream-based event correlation. You could set up a repetition rule that just says, and if you haven't seen it, then stream-based event correlation is a little bit not the same, but it's conceptually a little bit like correlation composer in a simpler form. And you could create a repetition rule that just says minimum of one event matching this event filter, and then you can change any of the attributes, not just the message group, which is now called category, but and service name, but you can change other attributes there as well. Another place you could do it would be in the event pipeline. So there's an event processing customization area in OMI where you can, if you like to do Groovy scripting, which is basically based on Java, but you can do it, and we provide samples, but you can create little Groovy scripts to manipulate the events. And again, this is a little bit like a server MSI area, but but you configure it in the GUI. And excuse me. And you also define the order in which these scripts are executed. So you can have it, again, pass an event filter and then change any event attributes you want to within the Groovy script. There are two places you could do that.
Okay, thank you very much. And a follow-up one from Martin. Is the OMU notification interface still running? For example, the notification flag in OMI.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the flag, if you were to forward an event from OMU to OMI, then, with that flag set, then, again, based on event filters, you'd have an event filter that looks for that flag, or I guess you can use it in OMI. But because it's based on an event filter, you can either base it on that flag or on other event attributes, if you wish, so you don't have to set the flag, and you can define notification rules. So instead of just, let me start again. You can define notification rules, multiple of them in OMI. Each rule is based on, an event filter, like I said, and then you define the recipients for that rule. And that might be like if it's email, it might be a distribution list or individual email addresses or whatever, or potentially SMS as well. But then it's up to the recipients, if they wish, to control the schedule. So they might say, at this time of day I want to receive an email, at that time of the day I want to receive an SMS. So the recipients themselves, through the GUI, can control the time of day. And the notification rule defines which events, what you want the output to look like, and who the recipients are that get it, and whether they're email or SMS.
Okay, thank you very much. I've lost some place in the list of questions here. Greg asked, yes, I think we can probably do this. Can we post a link to the OMI 10 sizing guide? So we can probably include that at the end. Is that Ian? I'm presuming that's okay.
Yeah, if you guys have got the list of everyone who's participating, then we can give it to you and you can blast it out to your members.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. A new one. Can you talk about the SPI to management pack migration, especially around licensing?
Okay, so in terms of licensing, then the entitlement program provides the means for people to move from their existing SPIs to the management pack equivalent, assuming that is the case. So that is part of the evolution program. So if someone signs up for the evolution program, is going to get that entitlement. Anything to add, Volker or Carol?
No, I think from the licensing, that you explained it already. Technically, we have a SPI to management pack evolution guide, which explains how you can move to the new management pack and keep your customizations that you might have done on the SPI side. We are also working on a tool that will help you with that and show you, okay, and take your SPI policies and convert them into management pack policies and keeping your customizations.
And there's a follow-up one along the same lines. Well, how about third-party SPIs? Presumably some of the licensing will be negotiated with the third party, or are there some rules?
That is the case. Yeah, if it's not an HP SPI, then the entitlement doesn't kick in on that. Obviously, it requires some discussion with the third party in question. Yeah.
Okay. And the migration of policies, does the migration tool work with third party SPIs?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. And that's the end of the questions. So Rocky Eric says, thank you very much. He says hello.
Yeah, I saw that too. Hey, I want to thank all our UK panelists. I felt like I was in a James Bond movie. But so I want to thank everyone today. We had a lot of great questions, and if there's more questions that we didn't answer today, just put it on the BSM-SIG panel, and we'll try to get to them or get the answers over to, or the questions over to our panelists to answer them. But great session today. Thanks for the updates on the operations bridge component. And if for any other questions or presentations you would like to learn more about for the next month's call, we'll just add that, and we'll try to get the folks involved. So again, thanks everyone. Have a great day. Appreciate it.
And Jay sent an apology. He had an emergency at work, so he wasn't able to join us.
No problem. Ian, you covered well. So
okay.
Well, great. Thanks everyone. And
Thank you very much.
We will conclude today's APM practitioner call.